Before we get started, we'd like to thank Liberty Mutual Surety for sponsoring this episode of Let's Get Surety. Liberty Mutual Surety provides all your bond needs, all in one place. For more information on Liberty Mutual's breadth of surety products and solutions, visit www.libertymutualsurety.com. Now on to our show.
You're listening to Let's Get Surety. Let me hear your bonding talk with Kat Shamapande.
Hey everyone, it's Kat Shamapande, and thanks for joining us for this episode of Let's Get Surety. Today I have with me my co-host Mark McCallum, CEO of NASBP. Hey Mark.
Hey Kat, it's great to be back talking about an important topic.
I know, I'm excited about today's topic too. We're going to be talking about digital bonds. And I know this is something during the pandemic that's come up more and more and has been something that's been around a lot longer than that, but has really become more pressing during these crazy times. So to talk about this with us today, we have Steve Ness, President of Surety Association of Canada. Hey, Steve.
Hello, Kat. Hello, Mark.
Thanks for being on with us today.
Great to be here.
And we also have Sheila Thompson, President of Rosenberg Parker of Canada Incorporated, and also the chair of the NASBP International Committee. Thanks for being on with us today, Sheila.
Thanks, Kat. Good to see you, Mark and Steve.
So before we dive into digital bonds, Steve, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and about the Surety Association of Canada?
Sure. We're, I guess, relatively new by U.S. standards. We were started in '92, and we're kind of like an amalgam of the SFAA and the NASBP. We represent everyone in the community: brokers, producers, sureties, reinsurers, anyone and everyone involved in the surety industry. And I guess I've headed it up now as president since 1994. Time flies when you're having a good time. And we've I guess been involved in the digital bonding file really since for years now, before it actually did catch on. And as you said off the top, very, very intensely since the onset of the pandemic, when everyone saw the advantages of going digital as we were all scattered to the four winds working from home.
Yeah. Sheila, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and Rosenberg Parker of Canada?
Sure, I can. So I am a surety professional. I've always been in surety. I love surety, and we'll talk surety all day long if you let me. Rosenberg and Parker of Canada is a surety-only broker, and we are licensed in all provinces and territories of Canada, providing surety right across Canada. We also do a lot of what we call cross-border business, U.S. companies needing bonds in Canada. And I've been involved in the digital or e-bond scene for quite some time, and even as long as 10, 12 years ago, I was beta testing and talking to developers about this concept and how it could move forward.
That's awesome. We are excited to get some information from you guys, from all of your experience in digital bonding. To kind of get everybody on the same playing field to start off, I feel like we need to talk about what is digital bonding, or maybe what's not digital bonding, to get started. Steve, could you talk about that a little?
Sure. A digital bond, as we know it, is one that is both executed and delivered via a digital platform. And maybe the best way to illustrate that is to talk about what it isn't. One of the common problems that we've seen, and we've seen it in spades since the onset of the pandemic, is this misconception that if you take a paper bond, scan it into a PDF, and then deliver it via email, that is a digital bond. It is not a digital bond. That's a facsimile of a paper bond, or a picture of a paper bond. I have this one-liner I always use when I'm talking to owners, that if you make a claim with a picture of a bond, we'll send you a picture of some money.
That's great. I love that.
But yeah, it's created on a digital platform. We have several vendors up in Canada, really three main vendors that do most of the digital bonds, although there are a few more coming online that can actually create them and work with the brokers like Sheila and the sureties to upload it to an owner's tendering platform.
And in terms of the digital bonding systems, here in the U.S., that is a pretty new concept. And we have a lot of statutory and regulatory requirements around bonding acceptance. That may not be the same case in Canada. What kind of acceptance by obligees and others does digital bonding have in Canada? And Sheila, do you want to start with an answer to that?
Yeah, I think we had a rather slow start when the complexities of the technology behind digital bonds got going. And we had a few public entities that were interested and ran some mock trials over the years. And we had some private enterprises that were starting to take digital bonds as part of the bid package. I would say that the pandemic has really lit a fire under the whole concept of e-bonds, and we're finding much wider adoption now, both in the public and in the private sector. We're also finding that not only bid bonds or bonds that would be used at the tender stage, but also performance and payment bonds are being asked for in a digital format.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So when you were making or advocating for acceptance of those systems, I imagine there were certain characteristics that had to be met in order to gain those acceptances. Steve, can you define some of the characteristics that are what you would consider to be a good digital bonding system?
Yeah, I mean, we have our three basic criteria: integrity, enforceability, and integrity, enforceability,
Secure access.
and then security of access as the three main criteria. Now remember that's not determined by statute or regulation. This is our criteria that we've identified as what would constitute an operable digital bond. And in terms, now I don't know if your question surrounds what the law would say or what the regulations would say. In Canada, we have a federal statute known as PIPEDA, which allows for electronic commerce, and each province has since then, and this happened around 2000, so it's been enforced about 20 years now, each province has its own Electronic Commerce Act, which effectively says that an electronic document would have the same force in law as a written document signed and sealed. Does that answer your question? I'm not sure I got it.
Yeah, to a certain extent. And I think in the U.S. there's a somewhat of a corollary there where public owners are entitled to rely on a digital document, digital signature. But what at least we're finding is that they may rely on it legally, but there's still a reluctance to go in this direction. So it's not compulsory on the public owner's part to accept digital bonds. And that I think there's probably a lot of misunderstandings on what constitutes a valid bond. So I was wondering if you had to go through an advocacy phase to bring comfort levels to public and private owners in Canada for digital bond acceptance.
Yeah, absolutely. And to an extent, we're still going through it. I think, like Sheila said, since the pandemic, people have sort of embraced it. And I guess even before that, I'm just going to say maybe 5-6 years now, people have started to accept or be more accepting of digital bonds. to an extent, there are owners out there that if they can't hold it in their hand and put it under their pillow, they don't want to know about it. They want something they can touch. And yeah, we're going through that, certainly.
So, Sheila, when the systems were being developed, did the bond producer community have a role to play in how those systems operated? Can you characterize how you interface with some of the generally used systems in Canada?
Mm-hmm. So, Mark, I worked with a couple of the providers as a beta tester. And so that would involved discussions back and forth about within the guidelines established by SAC, and some of those guidelines were established over a decade ago. How then, from a digital point of view, would that be met, and how to simplify it from the broker's point of view and also for the principal's point of view, to make sure that the criteria were being met and the document that was produced met that requirement of signed, sealed, and delivered, and the intent to sign, seal, and deliver. So we went through a number of iterations and comments back and forth. I'm sure I wasn't the only beta tester. I'm sure they had other beta testers as well, and probably in the producer community.
Wow, great. In Canada, is notarization as a requirement, is that a prevalent requirement? And if so, how did you work around that?
So in Canada, when you're issuing a bond, a notarization is uncommon.
Okay.
The other thing that we have or don't have, I guess, that's different from in the U.S. is a bond in the U.S. is going to have a power of attorney attached to it.
Right.
And in Canada, we don't attach a power of attorney. The digital e-bond, the only way that I can execute a bond or any of my team members can execute a bond for a specific surety is if that surety with that vendor says this person has power of attorney. So there's some control on it from that point of view in the digital world.
Those are really key distinctions. Thank you. You know, one of the things that I hear in terms of reticence here in the U.S. about digital bonds is a concern about security. And I think you mentioned that, Steve, and about that was a major criteria that you delineated as something that was important. Some people somehow, and I don't know why, but they feel like perhaps a digital bond might not be as secure as a paper bond. But are they really thinking about that correctly? What is your thought?
Well, my thought is that a digital bond is actually more secure than a paper bond. It's much more difficult, I think, if a digital bond is properly executed through a digital platform. It's very difficult to alter, almost impossible to alter without it being flagged. The end user, the obligee, can access the system and check to ensure that that bond was executed by the party who is identified as having executed, and that it has not been altered. The other advantage, of course, which you didn't mention to digital bonds, is that you will cut down on errors. Because if you don't complete a field properly, it won't let you go to the next one. So all in all, much more secure, much more reliable, and more dependable in the sense that more error-free.
And the third-party vendors that provide that digital platform also provide an audit trail, so you know who did what to the bond when.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. And so you can track that.
I should mention, just to add to that, what our association has done. As I mentioned, there's only a few digital bonding vendors out there in Canada. And we have taken upon ourselves to assess each system. against a set of predefined criteria. And if you go to your website, you can check out these assessments, and it'll show the system. Does it do this? Yes, no, partially. Does it do that? Yes, no, partially. So anyone can go to our website and check it out and say, yeah, okay, this system does that. And like Sheila says, almost all of them have a facility by which you can go in there and just to verify that this thing is the real deal.
Oh, that's great. And again, the URL for your website?
Sorry, I'm sorry?
Your URL, your address for your website?
Oh, sorry, yeah, it's suretycanada.com. Surety Canada, all one word.
Great. And we'll add that into the description for the podcast as well, so people can just click on that link there.
Perfect.
So, Sheila, in terms of working with these digital systems, is it safe to say that you think that makes your role easier, about the same, or more difficult?
I would think that my team would respond to say that it makes their role a little bit easier. They are preparing a bond as they normally do, uploading it to a third-party vendor site where they execute on behalf of the surety, and then our client executes on behalf of the surety. On behalf of themselves, at which point then the bond is created by the digital platform and locked, and that's the point at which it's released. I would think that from a producer's point of view, you don't have the time pressures the same to make sure that you're getting a courier to pick up in time, to deliver in time, to make sure that the client has time to move it before a bid closes, especially for contract surety. It's more environmentally friendly. We're not sending couriers out all over the place and everything, and it's fast for our clients. Our clients really like it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So you alluded to its use for contract surety, but are you saying digital bond systems being used for both contract surety and commercial surety bonds in Canada?
Steve, I'm going to let you answer that. I haven't seen a commercial, but I don't believe that I'm catching it all.
Well, the answer is theoretically, yes, it does do commercial surety bonds, and we do have a few commercial surety obligees that have embraced it. Almost all of them came about since the onset of the pandemic, but it just hasn't caught on the commercial surety side of the business the way it has on the contracting side, and we're working on that, but progress is slow.
Right. But you see it as an opportunity for the future, I imagine.
Oh, absolutely. We're hoping, 5 years' time, the paper bonds will be dinosaurs. That's what we're hoping.
Yeah, thing of the past. Yeah, so it was. I got a copy of the white paper that you produced, the Surety Association of Canada. I thought it was very well done. I assume that was, again, to, as I call it, move the rock towards digital bonding systems. Steve, where do you see yourself in terms of your advocacy going from here in Canada?
Well, it's going to be a kind of one thing at a time. We're going after individual owners just piece by piece across the country, starting off with the larger provincial ministries. We have the federal government now, one of the bigger arms of the federal government, which is Defence Construction Canada, which I guess is the Canadian equivalent to your Army Corps of Engineers. They've gone completely digital. We're trying to get the Federal Department of Public Works and some of the other ministries there. And we've got provincial ministries across the country that are now accepting it. We've had some success as well on the municipal side with the big municipalities jumping on board. So basically, it's we're going after them all one at a time. And I guess, like I said earlier, it's it's a process, because there are still people that haven't quite got out of the 20th century yet.
Right.
Some of them haven't gotten out of the 19th century yet.
Right, that's true. So, Sheila, I imagine too you're involved in educating not only your clients, obligees, and others about the virtues of moving in this direction. So, how do you do that? What process do you follow to kind of get people more comfortable with this?
It takes a fair bit of work, Mark, because you're right, there's a large education piece to it. So to make sure that our clients understand exactly what it is, what a digital bond is, and like Steve said at the beginning, what it isn't. It's not a picture of a PDF. And then to walk them through the process that they have to go through to get signed up with a vendor, produce a digital seal, and to produce, have people who are authorized to sign and seal on behalf of the company.
Right.
We've worked with them to produce board of directors resolutions to support perhaps having different people sign digital bonds than normally sign paper bonds.
Okay.
And we've worked with the third-party vendors as well to have them help educate our clients. The sureties are pretty much on board because they didn't have much of a choice, and it's pretty straightforward with them now. But it's you're right. There's been an awful lot of education.
In the different digital bonding systems, are they proprietary? I guess number one, and number two, do they connect with different systems, or is there still the issue of, as a producer, you have multiple systems that you're dealing with?
At this point, I believe they're all proprietary to the developers. It depends on whatever software you're using to manage your agency. Okay. There's possibilities of including a link to the third-party vendor in your actual application so that you're not going outside of where you're working in order to create that digital bond.
Right.
We haven't found it problematic in our office.
Oh, good.
And I will mention as well, those existing systems, they pretty much all of them will interface with the common bidding platforms that are used by owners, obligees across the country. So there's usually not an issue there.
So there's much closer tie-ins. You hear now discussions about use of blockchain technology as a way to pull all these systems together and allow them to engage in data transference and possibly use it in the surety context. Is that an area that you're looking at, Steve, from the vantage of the Surety Association of Canada?
Well, at this point, we've been talking with, with SFAA and ICISA regarding the involvement of the blockchain technology in powers of attorney. Like Sheila mentioned off the top, powers of attorney aren't commonly used in Canada other than as a means of empowering people from the producer's office to execute bonds on behalf of a surety. They're not filed with regulatory bodies, nor are they required to be attached to a bond. So it's probably of limited use up there. So yeah, we've looked into it. We're continuing to look at it, but it ain't come to the top of the to-do pile as yet.
Right. Understand. Sheila, if you wanted to impart some lessons learned to the U.S. with your use of digital bonding, what would those be?
I think it would be to make sure that you know exactly what you're doing, have a dry run. Don't wait until 5 minutes before the tender closes to try to figure out whether or not you know exactly what you're doing in order to get your digital bond executed. And I think that A learning piece is the simplicity with which it can work. I mean, I have clients who are traveling worldwide prior to the pandemic and signing bonds digitally on their phones.
Wow.
So it's
That's
very
awesome.
versatile.
You see some of the potential. Steve, any lessons learned that you would like to impart?
Actually, I just want to echo kind of what Sheila said. When we do our advocacy work with owners and obligees, and even, well, not so much these days, but with sureties and producers, our message is simple, that this is not rocket science. It's issuing a digital bond and receiving a digital bond is very intuitive. It's different. That's all. And so, you may stumble a little bit and have a few hiccups as you're just setting it up. But once you're established, once you've gone through it a few times, it's easy, and it's you're going to wonder how you ever did it the old-fashioned way.
That's very true, Steve. Very true.
A great way to frame it. Yeah, absolutely.
It is. Well, thank you both so much for joining us. This was a great conversation on digital bonds. I just wanted to mention the white paper that was mentioned earlier that the Surety Association of Canada put out is titled Digital Bonds, the Way of the Future and the Present. And we'll have a link to that in our description of this podcast as well. We'll have to have you guys back sometime to talk about how the movement's going and how you're getting more digital bonds written in Canada.
You've been listening to Let's Get Surety, brought to you by the National Association of Surety Bond Producers. For more information about the NASBP and its members, visit nasbp.org.
Before we go, we just wanted to thank Liberty Mutual Surety again for their generous support of sponsoring this episode of Let's Get Surety. Liberty Mutual Surety provides all your bond needs all in one place. For more information on Liberty Mutual's breadth of surety products and solutions, visit www.libertymutualsurety.com.